I'm here with Ben, and we're going to talk about UFC 249. Are you excited?
I am. I'm very excited to talk about UFC 249. It's kind of crazy where it live fights are back.
Yeah, it's very crazy. And it's weird because there is something about this one that I was like, it's going to happen. Like I haven't had that same feeling I had going forward with the last two times it was supposed to happen. I really feel like this is going to happen. There's not that like cloud hanging over it like there was before. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, for sure. I'm still the pessimist in me thinks that we're still some big fights definitely going to fall through. I'm just mentally preparing and emotionally preparing for that. But yeah, I think the event's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's true too because I don't want to get too far ahead. We'll get to that point you just made in a little bit. But so I just got off the media call. So they had the four main fighters, and as was expected, there was a little bit of drama in the co-main event. But there was something that kind of stuck out to me, and I wanted to read this quote from Dominick, and we can discuss it a little bit. But let me pull it up real quick. Uh, so Dominick said, I really look at this a whole lot different than belts and all the things we have. It's more about how you can make a difference in these times when you have a platform. So I look at this as a time where I can make a huge difference. What's the value of championship belts or Olympic gold medals when there's 33 million Americans that just filed for unemployment benefits and can't see their families since March? 2,417 Americans died in the United States. There's no vaccine for COVID-19 coming, probably no end in sight. It's been, I messed that up. It's been the question of what's the value of belts or even Olympic gold medals, unless you can use it to make a difference in the lives and in the service of humanity. And he said that a lot more eloquently than I just read it, of course. And I did want to point out one thing. He gave a stat of the Americans that have died. He said 2007 and 14, I think. I think he means yesterday because the overall is well above 60,000. So I just want to point that out as well. I think he meant a daily count. But I'm curious, like, what you think about what he said.
It's refreshing to hear somebody say something so mature, and he seems to have obviously an understanding of the bigger picture. And it's also refreshing to hear somebody who's humble. Like he recognizes that fighting in the UFC and his fight is not the end all be all, that there's a lot more going on in the world. And it sounds like if he's champion, not only will he be like the most inspirational story at MMA that I can think of if he wins, but it sounds like he, wants to use his platform for the greater good. So it's refreshing to hear him talk like that.
Yeah, and I agree. When he said that, I was like, oh, I got a little teary-eyed, and I was like, that's great. Somebody said something. But then, like, I sat on it a little bit, and I thought, like, it's great. I think his intentions are great, and I think the message is great. But I also wonder if it's a little bit hypocritical of him to say that while fighting against what a lot of people are saying. So, I don't know. It feels a little bit like it. What exactly can he do for those Americans that are unemployed and for those people that have died by fighting? I mean, he can't improve things by fighting. It's it's not like this fight being on television is going to heal the world or anything like that. I mean, he's not going to hurt anybody by fighting, hopefully, but I don't know. It kind of gave me a little bit of a pause, and I wonder, what does he plan to do with that platform if he does get it?
It's a good point. Maybe nothing. I mean, a lot of not just fighters, people, when they get, a certain platform, think that they can use it better than they can or more than they expect to. I do like it is a little ethically or morally like iffy sometimes, not only just being a fan of the sport, but hearing somebody like, Dominick Cruz, obviously he's participating in this, potentially putting more lives at risk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he also, like I said at the top, like it's refreshing to hear him speak with an understanding of the bigger picture. So I don't know. I'm a little torn
I mean,
about the whole thing in general.
yeah, I mean, well, I agree. I mean, it's hard, and I think too the fact that he's acknowledged what's going on. I think the other fighters have been very like, don't want to talk about it, don't want to mention it, don't want to think about it, or have downplayed it. And so I think it's really important that he didn't downplay it in any way. And I think that alone is helpful. I hope that he keeps that up if he has the chance to keep that up.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm excited to see him back, and we'll talk about that fight a little bit more too. And I also want to talk about, just as we were jumping on here, Tony shared his video of him getting the COVID-19 test, the dreaded long stick up your nose and into the back. And yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't watched a single one of those videos all the way through, and I will not watch this one just because it's Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean,
it gives me the EBGBs. I cannot.
Yeah, his was not as graphic because of the angle that it was coming in. You don't actually see how deep but I know I've seen one that went it's just crazy. And I just think, like, I mean, for Tony Ferguson, it's probably like another day in the park. It's not a big
He's probably been practicing COVID.
Right, yeah. I mean, he's probably been doing that all week. But, he mentioned in the call that his coaches were kind of not handling it too well. And his coach is a good friend of mine. And I'm just curious how he handled it. And I'm curious to text him and ask him if it hurt, because it looks really painful. And I just think, God, like, to do that and you're not even sick. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no. That's why I'm #staying home, is I definitely don't want to have to shove anything up my brain.
Yeah. I don't want to think about it. But another thing we kind of touched on last week, a little bit on FanSided, was the price of the pay-per-view. Still sticking at, I think, $64.99. And I think, like, I wrote a little bit about it on FanSided, and I think that in any other circumstance, fans would willingly pay $64.99 for a card like this. It's a great card. I'm not saying that the product they're putting out is not worth $64.95, because I probably would pay $100 for this card. I think it's a great card. But it does seem a little bit odd to be selling something high priced when there's so many Americans that are out of work. And it does feel a little opportunistic to me, because they are banking on the fact that people are bored, and they may bring in fans that wouldn't otherwise buy a card. But I feel like they could actually draw in a little bit more fans by making it free and having all those people that are bored that wouldn't watch MMA at all watch it. And what do you think about that? Are you going to buy it?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you're going to buy it, but
this is it is kind of not a slap in the face. That's a little too strong, but it's if you will, a mistreatment of, like, hardcore fans. This will still get those people who only watch 1 or 2 UFC fights a year, and they have nothing to do, and they have money, and they're sitting at home, and they're like, yeah, I'll pay $70 for this. But like you said, though, I think there's going to be a lot of people on the fence, or people that from time to time buy a pay-per-view, but because even though there's nothing else on TV, but, because of their situation, they can't afford it. So yeah, I mean, it definitely, I guess part of me kind of expected the UFC to lower its price for these for some reason, but that was obviously naive thinking.
Well, I thought so too, and I thought that at least like $49.95 or like $29.99, something. I mean, I get that they gotta make money, but
they could get some good vibes their way.
Exactly.
They say we're lowering the price.
Yeah, because they've already kind of damaged a little bit of the reputation of the UFC and MMA as a whole, because a lot of people only think the UFC is, that's just how they look at MMA. So by kind of extending that offer, I feel like I think a lot of MMA fans that were against the fight happening would maybe stop complaining about it happening if they were, you know what I mean? It just gives us more ammo to keep on, though, what's going on here kind of thing. And they're not helping themselves in the public eye, in my opinion, by charging that.
No, I definitely think they could have gotten a lot of good press to make up for a lot of the bad press they've had lately. If they say, you know what, we're going to offer this, whatever, even if it was still just some marketing gimmick, whatever, I don't care. Sometimes those are nice.
Yeah, or like offer it for free for first responders, or like people who work in the grocery stores, because then at least people would be like, yeah, that's I'm more willing to pay money because you're paying back in ethical ways. And I think that they really missed the boat. And like you said, with the good publicity. I mean, and not to mention that there's no opportunity to go out and watch it at a bar. so you can't see
or
me there
or share,
or
like
share the
can't
pay-per-view.
have friends come over, that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of people that are like myself, home alone,
Yeah,
sitting with their dog, just watching expensive fights.
yeah, I know that's sad. But now let's talk about those fights, those awesome fights. I'm really excited that they're back. I was obviously very vocal about how I don't think they should be coming back, but it's happening, and I'm not going to not talk about it. It's my job. So I think if we start talking about the main event, the co-main event, got 2 title fights. What do you think about the co-main event? What's your expert opinion going into this?
I mean, I'm not super pumped about the matchmaking, but like you said, like these are great fights that I'm excited to talk about.
Mhm.
I'm a huge Dominick Cruz fan. I love Dominick Cruz. I'm not a huge Henry Cejudo fan outside of the cage, but I think Father Time is a little bit too much for Dominick Cruz at this point. His style is totally like predicated on being able to get in and get out, draw out counterattacks from his opponent that he can then counter. But it's very speed oriented, and I think Henry Cejudo is just too fast. I think he's a tank at 135. I mean, Henry Cejudo won like a firefight with Marlon Moraes, which tells me that Dominick Cruz is probably not going to be able to do much to hurt Cejudo. So unless Cejudo gets really, really tired, I see him winning, I think, a decision, but I'd like to see Cruz make it full 25 minutes. But I think Cejudo is generally the better fighter here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on a lot of that. I believe that this fight will probably go all 5 rounds. I don't see any crazy knockouts or anything like that. I think, dare I say, it might even be the most boring fight on the card. We'll see. But and that's saying, I mean, that's a great card, so it's not to insult them anyway. I think that in a great card, you're going to have somebody has to be the stinker. But I think that one thing that I have always placed a lot of emphasis on is the mental aspect of the game and the mental fortitude that some fighters have, and the meaning behind a win for someone. I feel like that mental game is what helped Conor McGregor win so often, and I feel like that mental game is what's going to give Dominick Cruz a little bit of an edge, in the sense that this fight could end his career forever, and this fight could revive his career. So I think that he has so much more at stake, so much more to lose, and so much more to gain. And so I feel like that heart and that mind is going to potentially overshadow. And I really hope that's the case, because I would like to see him have a win again, even if it's a win and then he says, "Okay, now I'm retired." And to be honest, I can't stand Henry Cejudo. I want him. It's just too much. I really liked him at the beginning, and it's just too much.
You know, I went back and watched his fight when he won the belt against Demetrius Johnson, and you realize that was just August 2018, so not even 2 full years ago, and he was just like totally
Different.
Yeah, there was no triple C. There was not. He was just totally chill, and it's like, oh man. And then he puts together these 2 like awesome performances that basically any other person on the roster, he's my guy 100%. But then just the cringe is too much.
Yeah, and I don't. There was something too on the media call that people pointed out, was that all of his insults to Dominick were like, "Don't break a nail,"
Just like, you're a
"Miss
girl.
Universe," just like really stupid. Like, are you really insulting him by calling him a girl? Like, that's the best that you can come up with? I don't know. It's not smart. It's like, as much as I hate it, Colby Covington is at least, like, I'm not going to call him smart, but at least his trash talk has a little bit of like, there's something to it. There's a little bit of a, like, when he says something, you go, oh. With Henry, you just laugh. Like, it's not fun to listen to. So
his trash talk is like, I don't know. It's offensive to like the great trash talkers of MMA. I feel
right.
like,
and I feel like he offends. His trash talk is offensive, but it's offensive to like not the person he's trying to trash talk. It's offensive to like Like that, it's offensive to women. It's like,
Yeah.
what? You know, or it's offensive to dogs or whatever it is that he's saying. It's like, it doesn't, his offense is not aimed in the right place.
It makes me want to see a Henry Cejudo and Alexander Volkanovski fight, because Volkanovski would just accept all that trash talk. He's the virgins and nerds are the best.
Yeah.
Like he would love it. Also, I think Alexander Volkanovski would beat the brakes off Cejudo. But,
yeah. He
so
did say on the media call that he wants to fight him as well. So.
Of course.
So there's that. And then obviously we've got the main event. Not the main event we originally wanted for many, many, many years. Before we talk about the actual main event we're getting now, do you think there's a chance that we see a sixth booking of this fight?
I mean, if Tony Ferguson wins, that feels like the Tony Khabib, that feels like it's got to happen, I would assume.
I mean, I would assume too, but I just don't.
I wouldn't put it past them putting Conor McGregor up there against Khabib again, just because Endeavor needs some cash right now. But
yeah, and he did. Dana did say something recently about Conor really wanting that rematch. He really, and he did say he wants to give it to him. So I definitely could see them. I don't know. I just feel like there's some way that they're gonna prolong this. I just can't see. I don't see Tony and Khabib fighting ever. I don't know.
You've accepted it.
To be honest, when they announced the fifth time, I said it wasn't going to happen. I called it from the day it came out, and it took a pandemic for me to be right. But I was right.
Yeah, if it gets booked a sixth time, I do not want to know what has to happen.
Yeah, don't tell us. Just all of a sudden air it and be like, look what just happened, guys. Like we don't need to be there. We can watch it after. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that.
But how do you feel about the matchup just in general? The fact that there had to be a late. Well, first of all, do you believe that Tony should have just waited? Or do you believe that it's good that he took a fight, and do you believe that it's the right opponent for him to take in the fight?
Like from an objective perspective, it feels like kind of a bad move for his career, because this is a really dangerous fight. And he has even bigger fights, more money to be made on the horizon. But at the same time, this feels very on brand for him. Like I would be almost disappointed if news came out that, Tony Ferguson turned down Gaethje because he wanted to hold out for the Khabib fight, which would be totally reasonable and totally like rational. But I would be disappointed because it's like, that's not the Tony Ferguson that we love. So might not be the best move for his career, but this certainly feels very on brand for Tony Ferguson, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I hate to keep saying on the media call, but that's fresh on my brain. On the media call, he did say, he doesn't wait. Like he's never waited, and he kind of mentioned that his years in Tough, or his time in Tough, and he said that you never knew who you were going to fight, you never knew when it was going to happen, and so he's used to that, and so it doesn't matter to him who he fights or when. It's just okay, let's take it, let's go.
I mean, if that gives him a mental edge, then by all means,
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned also that the quietness of the crowd. He's used to that from Tough as well. So he does have a little bit of edge, I think, in some of those aspects that maybe Justin doesn't have. And I think as dangerous as Justin is, I think, again, I'm going to go with the mental side of this. I feel like he's going into that fight where he's saying, oh my God, I'm fighting Tony Ferguson for the title. And Tony Ferguson is going into the fight saying, I'm fighting. So there's an aspect to the fight that there might be so much pressure on Justin that he may not, be able to think or perform or whatever it is. I feel like that pressure, that added pressure, is going to work against him.
Yeah. I think I slightly favor Ferguson here, but obviously, like the preparedness that he's been going through, I think it helps Ferguson here. I think, to play devil's advocate, there is something to be said that, Ferguson has been in camp for like whatever, 14, 15 weeks or whatever. And now Gaethje is having this nice little like 4 or 5 week camp. But generally, I think still it favors Ferguson being the guy that was preparing for this fight. And yeah, I mean, it's the streak that he's on. it's hard to doubt his mentality. You know, if you want to talk about who is better mentally prepared for this situation, Justin Gaethje is obviously like insanely tough, and you have to like completely put him out to TKO him. Not questioning his heart in any way, shape, or form, but it was just 2017 and 2018 that he lost back-to-back stoppages against elite competition, nonetheless. But Tony Ferguson is as elite as they come, and I think the longer this fight goes on, the more Tony will be able to show off the diversity of his attacks, and just generally get the better of Gaethje. But I think this is an absolute barn burner, a banger.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I kind of predict it's either going to be one of those crazy, like, Masvidal flying knee, like, first few seconds, somebody dies, or it's going to go whole 5 rounds, slugfest, blood everywhere, broken bones everywhere. It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be in between. There's not going to be a finish in the third. Like, it's going to be finish right at the beginning, or you're going right at the end.
Yeah.
I'm
hoping for the 5-round war, but I could definitely see Gaethje throwing a big right hand early on. Tony is a little like super chill for the first couple of minutes of the fight, and obviously Gaethje is ready to knock you out from the jump. So I could see both things happening. I'm hoping for 25 minutes of bonkers
madness. And you're recapping that fight, so I'm surprised you wanted to go 5 rounds and madness, because I always, whenever there's a fight I'm recapping, I'm like, end early, because I hate having to, like, the momentum and the fear of, like, I'm gonna miss it. I don't know.
No, well, now I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Sorry. Now, do you want to still recap it?
Yeah. It's okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we need to really go through the rest of the card, because like I said before, it's these fighters, and there's nobody really unknown. People know what's going to happen here coming in, who we're expecting to see. But I would like to know who, out of, besides the main and co-main, who do you think should be somebody to watch? What fight do you think might shock us all?
So a little bit further down on the card, I think it's scheduled for the third fight of the night, is Vicente Luque and Nico Price, who I think are like two sides of the same coin, in that they're both like very offensively minded action fighters, finishers. Luque gets it done though by being like super kind of conventional, like jab, cross, hook, leg kick, that kind of stuff, but he'll do it to an extreme extent. And then Nico Price is obviously like one of the weirdest finishers in the sport right now. He has that like hammer fist finish from his back. So I think that matchup is made for fireworks. I want to say they're both, Nico Price is 30 and Luque is 28. They're both like in their primes, both trying to make a statement. I don't see what can go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Well, actually, we didn't talk about what could go wrong. And what could go wrong is that somebody tests positive for COVID, but we'll discuss that in a minute. I think, I mean, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I feel like everyone's going to say this, but Pettis and Cerrone. I just feel like every time I look at the card, I go, oh my God, they're fighting. Like, I forget every single time that they're fighting, because there's just so many huge fights on this card. But I feel like that's going to be one that is going to be another one where it's going to go all 3 rounds, blood everywhere, broken bones. Like, this canvas is going to be red by the end of the night. And I think that's going to be one of the big reasons. And I couldn't even pick who I think is going to win. I really do think it's just one. I'm actually going to make a wild guess here, and I'm going to say it's going to go to a draw.
I would love that. Yeah. I imagine it's going to be a lot of craziness, and it makes me a little sad that there's no fans there. I mean, obviously, I don't. I understand why, but if there were fans there, they would go bonkers for this fight.
Right. I feel like we should have set up webcams around the country and just like filtered in the noise, people responding. That would have been cool. I don't know why I said we're not the UFC. The UFC should have set up and filtered in everybody's reactions. But yeah, I mean, going back to the COVID test, what do you think is going to happen? I think, number one, if somebody tests positive, are we going to hear about it? And if they do test positive, then what? Like, let's just wild guess. Let's say Justin tests positive for COVID. What happens?
I do think we hear about it. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where that's kept 100% quiet. Um, I don't know. It's so like my first instinct is to think, oh, well, then, he'll be asked to leave, which I think I've read somewhere. I don't want to speak off the, spread rumors, but I believe they would be asked to leave if they test positive. But then it brings up all these other questions as to what about the events next week? How many staff there were exposed to this? How many other fighters and teams were exposed to this? So it brings up like an enormous amount of questions, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, all the people that could have been exposed, just him being in the hotel, in the fighter hotel. I mean, in any other situation, if, let's say, you're in a grocery store and they find out the person who worked there, they close the grocery store and they wash it down and they do this and what are they going to do when there's a fight going on? I mean, and at what point are they going to find out that somebody's positive? Because I could be incorrect, but I believe it's a 3-day test.
Oh, I don't
know. So that's 3 days of, I mean, I know that there's different. I know that there are some 24-hour tests, but I don't believe the one through I'll have to ask my mom who's a nurse, but I believe that the one through the nose, because it's the most accurate, takes 3 days.
Oh, it sounds like a headache. And then I would assume that if especially if somebody like Justin Gaethje tests positive, that Endeavor, WME, IMG would pull the plug on UFC stuff moving forward for the time being, because I wouldn't see them wanting to stomach the bad PR happening multiple times.
I mean, it's just, I hope that's not the case, but I mean, there's so many what ifs. So it's like, I'm curious how they're doing weigh-ins. I heard that they maybe are scheduling fighters to come in at separate times for weigh-ins. Are they going to stream it for us to watch? Is media going to be allowed in there? I mean, there's just so much that we don't know, even based off UFC Brasilia, because that's a little bit of a marker of how they handle things. But I don't know. I just think it's going to be an interesting fight altogether.
I'm a lot less nervous about it than I was a few weeks ago when they announced the, April 18th card, when they were going to talk about doing it at Tachi Palace.
Yeah.
That made me like, maybe I'm being irrational to think things are safer now, but just the time, I'm way less anxious about it happening.
Well, I think for me, I'm a lot less anxious as well. And I think, and I sat there and I thought about it, because I said, what is it about it that makes it feel safer? Because it does to me feel safer. And I think for me, it was that it doesn't feel rushed, that the UFC has had time to make a game plan, figure out the safety procedures, talk to the right people, and hopefully have figured out the safest way to do it. And I felt like with Tachi Palace, they were rushing it as fast as they could. It was, I mean, we're talking days. I didn't feel like they were caring about the precautions as much as they are now. And I'm hoping that that's the case. Obviously I'm not there, so I don't know. But I also think that it feels a little bit better to me because Florida is opening back up. They're not breaking any kind of stay-at-home order. And by doing it at Tachi Palace, technically they weren't, but they were circumventing. They were going out of their way to skirt the law. And that felt not right to me either. And I think that them doing it in Florida, they're not doing anything against the law there. So there's a little bit of difference in my opinion.
It feels a lot more honest. Everything's above the table.
Yeah. Well, as much as a lot more than it was before. I think there's still a lot that's kept under the table, but I think that I can understand why some things are. Like, I mean, yes, we feel like we deserve to know things, but I also understand that some things that they want to keep close to the vest. But locations of events we should know about. So yeah. We should know where they're fighting. But yeah, I mean, I think that overall, I think we're going to have a good night. And I hope that everybody listening to this goes to FanSided and reads our recaps and sees what we're talking about and follows along with us.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking about UFC 249 with me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks.